Now, in the studios this morning, I have with me Andrew Apia Dankwa Esquire. And of course, every Tuesday, we expect to see him on the show. He represents Yellow Nation. He's a private legal practitioner and also a communications team member for Movement for Change, a.k.a. Butterfly. Good morning.
Morning, Bella.
And yeah, he brought something yellow. You might not see it on the table. You want to raise it for them to see that at least you're showcasing some...
the great transformational plan.
How are you doing, by the way?
I'm doing great yourself.
Okay, I'm not bad, not bad. You had a good week so far?
Yeah, I had a great week.
Yeah?
So far, I'm having a very great weekend.
Well, Eric Edem Agbana is also here with us. He's a communications team member for the NDC and also parliamentary aspirant for K2 South. North, okay, K2 North. Good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning, Bella. It's been a while.
It's been a while, but I hope you're well.
By God's grace.
Were you in the constituency?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, let me say good morning to our viewers across the world, and especially to the good people of K2 North. I was away for the limited registration and all the related activities. And I'm happy to be back here this morning, except that I'm told the Yanum have decided to...
Who's Yanum?
the other side.
Which other side?
The NPP.
Oh, okay.
I'm told they are no more appearing on your show. It's sad.
Oh, you're disappointed?
I'm disappointed. But not surprised.
Oh.
Not surprised because consistently they've been losing the argument. And I have realized that the MPP communicators and government spokespersons are always looking for a platform to engage in their petty propaganda and deceptive politics. And so on any platform that they are subjected to the proper interrogation, on any platform that the right questions are asked, they assume that those platforms are against them. And that's why I'm not surprised that they have decided to, let me say, boycott TV3, a station that we all believe is very fair, a station that Ghanaians are watching. But these are signs that they are indeed on their way out of power because...
you can't say that for a fact.
No, but they are, I mean...
TV3
Bella,
is not the whole of Ghana, so
but
allow Ghanaians to vote and then we'll know.
But Bella, I monitor them not only on your network, on other networks as well. And you all agree with me. Even my friends in the NPP agree with me that there's something wrong with their communication. And I say, look, the problem is not the communicators. It is what you are going to defend. And so, for a mess that we have seen, for the level of mess that we have experienced over the last 8 years, you can be the most eloquent, the most intelligent, you can be the smartest in the room. If you haven't sense to come and defend the mess, you can't, because Ghanaians are feeling the reality.
But Adam, I mean, the NDC, have you also not boycotted a media station before?
We give very cogent reasons. For example, there's a particular station that we are boycotting, that we boycotted from 2020 till today.
You are still boycotting?
We are still boycotting.
In Accra?
Yes, in Accra. Maybe it's not proper to mention their name, but Ghanaians know. The reason, yes, the reason
you called off that boycott.
We didn't call it off, and the reason for the boycott was that every time they bring in a former member of the party, a person we have sacked, and they let the person represent the party and give only one slot to the NDC, and they give 2 slots to the NPP.
So
and we have said...
Hold on, they let that person represent the NDC
So the person is a former, we all know, I mean, I can go into the issues. The person is a former regional chairman of the NDC.
Oh.
The person was sanctioned by the party, and yet he was made a regular panelist on the show. Now, it's a show that had 4 panelists. And so anytime they had that person, they started referring to him as a social communicator or social commentator. Then they gave the NDC only 1 slot, and then they were giving the MPP 2 more slots to make up the 4. And we demanded that if you are going to bring that person as a social commentator, give us 2 slots, then you have 5 panelists.
Oh.
They said their studio could not contain 5 people. Then we said no, but there is no way we will appear alongside that person with the assumption.
Adam,
and they introduced the person as a former regional chairman to create the impression.
If your message is good enough, then you shouldn't need more than 1 person in the studio to defend whatever.
But why do you give the other party 2 slots?
No, that's what I'm saying. That, I mean, you're crying foul about it. I understand you want fairness, but at the same time, if you have a good
that
message,
is fairness.
If you have a good message, you shouldn't need more than 1 person in the studio.
So it means that they are going to have more time, because if you are giving every panelist, say 10 minutes to make their point. No, it's not just about the time, but I'm saying that if you are giving every panelist 10 minutes to make their point, then for one political party you are giving them 2 slots and you give the NDC only 1 slot.
All right.
Obviously, you are going to disadvantage us. And so we made that boycott on fair grounds. But this boycott of TV3 platforms, you ask yourselves, and what really are they boycotting?
Well,
they are just afraid of the debate. I'm telling them, Dennis Abuaje is my friend. After the show, I'm going to call him. That it is an act of cowardice. They should come back and let's be debating on this platform.
But try and get
Dennis is my friend. I'll talk to him.
Speak to them and understand the reasons why they may have decided.
Please, we all monitor the station. What is
let's move on. We didn't come here to
discuss. If you send communicators who cannot come and argue your point out, why do you blame TV3?
We're sure that GTP is always here.
I'm so disappointed.
Yeah, because
Dennis, if you are, I know you are watching.
Adam.
Dennis is watching. His favorite station is TV3.
What's McBona? What does that mean?
McBona, I'm coming.
Oh no, that's not what I mean.
You want to say Gojidi?
Gojidi, have patience.
I wish
why
to
are
see
you
the
doing
MPP
that?
here.
Anyway, well, let's hope that eventually they'll change their mind. But if not, we move. That's what we always say. But let's get into our first story now. Today we'll be looking at 2 main stories. So, Honorable Alan Kyerematen yesterday launched the Great Transformational Plan, where he gave further details as to exactly how he intends to run his government if he should vote for him to become president. And in doing so, he mentioned a number of things. The fact that, he was going to terminate the COVID levy, which is something a number of people have been asking for. He will review all taxes and run his government with 40 ministers. We'll get into that. And then also, we're going into the banking sector cleanup, where yesterday it was announced that the president had given clearance for some 1.5 billion Ghana cedis to be released to pay affected customers. Well, the customers are speaking. They're saying that 1.5 billion is not enough to cover the amount that is owed them, and they expect better. What do you make of that as well? Let's get into our first story now, and we'll cross over to yesterday's press conference, where Honorable Alan Kyerematen spoke to the media, explaining to them and giving details why he thought that the Great Transformational Plan was the way to go, and also announcing that he was going to run with 40 ministers and also scrap COVID levy. Take a look.
Use the current size of government and run a lean executive administration consisting of not more than 40 ministers. Eliminate sole sourcing in public procurement and contracting to ensure value for money, which has over the years been a major source of the bloating of government expenditure.
You've heard from them, but of course, Council is here. He'll provide some further details as to exactly what to expect under Movement for Change if they should come into power. Good morning again.
Good morning, Bella.
So again, 40 ministers. Yeah. I don't know if you're watching us this morning on TV, but a number of callers were asking very important questions, and we're saying that Honorable Alan Kyerematen served as Minister for Trade in the first term and the second term of President Akufo-Addo. Yeah. He was part of the 123 ministers or so. Yeah. Why did he not raise objections then that those number of ministers were too many, and all of a sudden he thinks that 40 ministers is the best way to go?
Yeah, so let me take this opportunity to wish your lovely viewers a good morning. Wish my brother here, Adam, a good morning and all the best in this pursuit of representing the people of Ketu North in Parliament. And I think I don't see much about the MPP's boycott. I think it's their own issue. And then wish your lovely viewers a good morning. And so on the small matter of why Alan John Kyerematen didn't publicly state a contrary view to Nanado's decision to, as we use about 125 ministers. My simple answer is because of the oath of secrecy the ministers, as in the cabinet ministers take, it could be that privately in cabinet he opposed that. Clearly,
it could be. Do you know for a fact?
I know, and certainly having worked closely with Alan and all Ghanaians, having heard his position on how he feels governance ought to be. I think it's a matter of public knowledge that Alan has always believed in what I'll call the laissez-faire system of governance. Okay. And the laissez-faire system of governance certainly believe in small government as opposed to big government. You understand? So personally, and like myself, I was a member of the MPP, and in terms of my idea of philosophy of how governance ought to be, and I'm a firm believer of the laissez-faire system of governance. I always held a different view. But like I said, because of the oath that he took, the oath of secrecy that he took, it's not everything that Alan can publicly come out and say concerning issues that he was opposed to Nana Akufo-Addo.
When he said it, what was the president's response?
Certainly, I can't. He himself isn't allowed to say.
He's not allowed to say.
So imagine I won't be allowed to say.
But he's the one that took the oath, not you. So you should be allowed to say it.
But whatever I say will be hearsay. And all I can say is that Alan has been opposed to this huge size of anybody who believes in the laissez-faire system of governance, as in small governance as against big government, who believes that the private sector really is the engine of growth. You understand? As in, won't believe in 125 what's called ministers. The issue is Nanado gave an explanation when Ghanaians, because Ghanaians generally were also opposed to, and he gave his explanation then as to whether it was cogent enough, or as to whether it worked. As I think the results are there for all to see, but.
When you say results are there to see, I remember that he said that the reason why he had a bloated government was because he trusted the people and they were going to do the work. If along the line they didn't do the work, then he was going to cut down on them.
Yeah, and he hasn't. As in my view, as in what kind of justification can you have for having a minister for transport, minister for railways, minister for roads? As in what kind of justification can you have when clearly you could or you can't consolidate? And you see, and the issue isn't just about also the ministers, but even on the state agencies, we have what's called GNPC, we have TOR, we have Petroleum Commission. My personal view is that it's just a job for the boys, because what they do, as in they handle issues that clearly would intersect, and you can consolidate all these into one body with the view of cutting down on government expenditure. When
you belong to the party, if you had been given any of these positions that you describe as job for the boys, would you have rejected it?
Yeah, as in,
you would have rejected.
You see, so I want this to be clear.
Okay.
You see, and I've said this. I'm not really huge on public office, personally. As in, and this is a personal question. I'm not really huge. I believe strongly that if government does what they are supposed to do, create the right environment, create a system where jobs can be created, my kind are more suitable for the private sector. As in, I work. I've been working for 16 years now as a lawyer. I enjoy what I do. I'm also a businessman. So you see, that assumption that everybody who does some form of politics is doing so because they want some kind of position isn't.
So you are not looking for any position,
no,
even as it stands now.
No, I'm not.
If movement for change should come to power, you are not going to accept any political office.
So that is not my focus.
But if it comes, you take it.
No, it depends.
On what exactly?
So one, do I have the capacity? Do I have the passion for it? Do I think I have the commitment at that stage of my life to subject myself to public office? Because you see, if we are doing things really well, there are kind of issues that motivate people to go into public, like the Brian Champion issue. When you are doing public office properly, so-called, there's no way you can make money from it. As in, if you are doing it very well and you are faithful to the public trust that's created in you, you understand. Then the reason why you want to submit yourself to public office is because you think you have something substantial to give to the public. So for me, it's not a subject that in my view is even up for consideration at this point in time. What is, in my view, should up for consideration is what are the plans, what are the programs? Because you see, the way we do politics here, I always say this: the easiest thing to do in politics is to criticize. The easiest thing you can do is to sit on air and criticize. The difficult bit is, how do you advance programs? How do you advance policies? How do you advance vision that seeks to solve the problems, and the many problems we are facing? That's the difficult bit. And I think that's the focus of the GTP. I think that should be the focus of Ghanaians going into. Because for 32 years, what we've done is we've given power to the person. Because when we are voting for the president, we are not voting for a party. We are voting for a human being, the system we run. You understand?
Okay.
We are voting for a person. Now, what we've done is we've always voted into power a person and a group that are able to articulate criticisms the best, than necessarily questioning how they intend to solve the problems that we are bedeviled with. And that's what the GTP seeks to do. Because it's not like your ordinary manifesto where we say, oh, when I come and do this. What the GTP essentially is doing is to, first of all, put into clusters the issues that needs dealing with in order to take Ghana from a position of perpetual instability. Because you see, where a country for 17 years, you found yourself going to the IMF, and about every 4 years, you find yourself right back to the situation you were. Then what it tells us is that we need a comprehensive program that, beyond the stability that the IMF gives, grants you a sustained level of growth.
Okay.
That will create that resilience.
Sorry, but let's go into the ministers so that we can bring Edem in as well, because I'm looking at it, and first of all, Honorable Kyerematen Sabosu had said that he doesn't even think that any government needs more than 19 ministers. Yeah. So don't you think that 40 is a bit too much, looking at the statement that he made?
So
for someone who has worked in government for so long.
So per the nature of our constitution, it is impossible to also have 19 ministers, because I think the constitution makes provision for regional ministers. So just that alone is taking about 16 ministers. And then so when you take the regional ministers out, and I don't think the regional ministers make up your cabinet ordinarily. So, and then you also have a situation where the constitution itself is saying that you must have at least, I think 19 cabinet ministers. So 19 plus 16 will give you in the region of 35.
Okay. So you are playing within that region, which is why you've mentioned 40. Now let's look at it, because you seem to have consolidated some of the ministries. I'm seeing here, I think I'm looking at page 40. Interesting. Public sector reforms. So page 40 says that there's Attorney General, then there's Finance, Economy, Trade and Industry. Does that seek to suggest that you're merging these two? So finance, economy, trade and industry. So finance and trade?
Yeah, because essentially that's the ministry for the economy.
Okay.
You really... Oh, sorry.
Carry on.
So finance and trade really are the ministry of the economy. Now, when we say the economy, you must understand that first of all, you need, as a government, to create the right environment that will bring the stability. Because without stability, you can't grow.
Okay.
You understand? So you need a ministry whose focus is in how government uses the role it plays in the economy, which is fiscal policy. Because we need to understand that the role government really plays in the economy is in terms of monetary and fiscal. But the monetary is in the hands of Bank of Ghana. What the president can do is to give direction to the Bank of Ghana how you intend the monetary policy to be handled. Now, so then you are left with the fiscal. You understand? So now, because a right usage of the fiscal and monetary will give you that stability that you need. Then what trade then does is that the Minister of Trade would then, by power of policy, because really the most powerful tool in the hands of a minister is policy. And a typical example is the policy that brought the car companies in.
Okay, make it brief for me so I can bring it in.
I understand. So there's every sense in joining finance and trade.
So it will be one ministry with two ministers.
One dealing with what's it called, finance and economy, another one dealing with trade, with policies whose focus is to engender growth.
I see.
You understand? So SME development, you're talking about the strategic anchor industries, you're talking about the 1D, 1F, and all the policies that can bring about real growth, whilst the finance and the economy deals with the general economic environment, without which you can't have the growth you need.
So 40 ministers, but under how many ministries?
So under...
Is that what I'm seeing as 16? So there'll be 16 ministries with 40 ministers. 40 ministers,
so the 40 ministers, mind you, includes the 16
regional ministers.
And we say not more. So it's not more.
How can we trust that you're going to do this? We've heard a number of parties promise that we're going to cut down on a number of ministers, and then they come in.
So I'll
and
certainly
we see a bloated government.
And I have every confidence to trust the commitment and character of Honorable Kyerematen to the fore, because it's not like Alan Kyerematen is an unknown quantity in Ghana politics. And in fact, I need to go way back even to the 90s. There's somebody who the Times, the New York Times at some point in time, touted as being one of the 100 leaders who they believed could take the world into the next million. So his character, his commitment, his integrity isn't in doubt. And because of that integrity and that's unalloyed commitment, I believe, and that's why he's had the confidence not just to bring this up, but to publish it in the form of a book.
Well,
and it's there for everybody to see.
So
we can hold Alan Kyerematen, we can hold his neck, his feet.
We have manifestos from various governments as well. But let me bring them in. And good morning, Mani Niman. He says that please tell council that he should tell Honorable Alan to plant the sugar cane first. Of course, you're talking about Commander. But
yes.
Adam, I mean, you're hearing from him. And I know that, the former president has also said that he's going to have a government with 60 ministers and nothing more than that. In his previous government, he had more than that.
Well, Bella,
what has led to this change?
Let me say that I'm happy the Honorable Alan Kyerematen and the Butterfly Movement, they have been engaged in campaigning, just as President Mahama and the NDC is doing. In these whole elections, I am trying to follow all the candidates. I mean, despite my alignment with the NDC, and I believe that the NDC is the only party to rescue this country and put this country back on the path of progress. I am not oblivious to the campaign strategies or approaches of the other candidates. And so I'm following all the campaigns. And I must say that so far, I see only two candidates campaigning on issues.
Who are these?
And that is His Excellency John Dramani Mahama and Alan Kyerematen. Anytime I listen to any of them, policy-driven conversations.
Dr. Baumia has been talking about policies as well.
Policy-driven conversations, I will come there. And I don't see that in the NPP's campaign. And so I must applaud these two candidates that from the word go, they are speaking to policies, speaking to the issues that I believe will address the challenges that we are confronted with.
Are you not being unfair to Dr. Baumia? I mean, he's been talking about the ports and what he intends to do. I know, but I'm just saying that if you make a statement like this, like these are the only two people that you think are speaking to policies. Dr. Baumia has been talking about, making taxes at the ports lower than Togo.
Bella, I will get there.
He's going to pay, the chiefs all the allowances and stuff.
I'm sure if you allow me to
please carry on.
Elucidate on my point, No, I mean, since they are not here.
I'm not sitting in their stead.
Bella can play the devil's advocate. Let's go. So, Bella, I'm saying this because when you follow the NPP's campaign, and you follow Dr. Baumia's campaign keenly, you realize that all that he has been trying to do and all that he's saying is, one, how to make himself look cleaner than the government in which he's serving as the vice president. And so when there are challenges, he says, I'm only a mate. I'm not the ultimate person to make the decisions here and there and all of that. And then things that seems to be some success stories, he takes the credit and he has been explaining all his campaign engagements, explanations here and there. Even the video you played before the show started about NAPCO. Explanations. Why? Because we have a government that has failed to deliver on its mandate. And so as the vice president and chairman of the economic management team, he is either explaining, giving excuses, or promising to undo things that his own government is doing, which for me is not reasonable. Because if you are sitting there as the vice president and chairperson of the economic management team, and under your government today, people at the port, importers, are paying charges that makes their business collapse. Charges that have imposed so much on the Ghanaians, such that today, when you are importing anything, vehicles and all of that, your biggest hurdle is how to pay charges. And you sit there as the chairman of the economic management team, and you are now promising that when given the chance to be president, you will have a flat rate like Togo and all of that. The big question is, what stops you from doing that now as chairman of the economic management team?
He doesn't have the steer.
He doesn't. So the one who has the steer is misleading us. The one who has the steer is driving us into the ditch. And you as the mate, you are following, cheering, and say, wait, when you get into the ditch, give me the chance to now be the driver. I will bring the car out of the ditch and then now drive you back on the right path and all of that. All that we are saying is that all of these promises by the NPP are things that falls under his domain as chairperson of the economic management team. And so issues of the size of government, going back to the question of size of government, I am not surprised that Mr. Alan Kyerematen is promising a smaller size of government. In fact, there is a general agreement with President Mohammed's proposal that there is a need for us to reduce the size of government. But I'm not surprised because Alan was cabinet minister under the NPP, NPP 1 and NPP 1.5. He was a cabinet minister until recently. And he was part of cabinet when government had over 123 ministers. He was part of cabinet when Ghanaians complained about the obolo size of the government, where even in addition to ministers, almost every ministry had spokespersons in addition to the directors of communications at these ministries. At the presidency, more than 2,000 people as presidential staffers. And when the list came, we saw all sorts of ridiculous designations, lady in waiting here and there, people in charge of cameras. Sometimes you see particular particular agency at the presidency, about 14 or 15 technical advisors and technical assistants and all of that. So we all agree that this current government has failed when it comes to ensuring that we have proper management of our resources, because they introduced this obolo-sized government. So Alan was part. Dr. Bawumia is part. And they are all part of this obolo-sized government.
But they are not the ones to make the decision.
No, but
it's the president that wields that power. So even if they may have said it.
So I'm making a point.
It's up to the president to decide.
The point is that prior to 2016, what did Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and Dr. Bawumia promise the people of Ghana when it comes to the size of government? They told us, and I recall a particular campaign rally where Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo told the people of Ghana that instead of a lean government, we now had lean kinky. And he criticized the size of government. Meanwhile, at the time, ministers of state at the time were less than 75. But President Akufo-Addo then, as candidate Akufo, criticized it. Today, when he came and when he had the opportunity, he increased the size of government, not just with regards to the ministries, but all sorts of appointments here and there. Today, some government agencies, state agencies have 2 deputies, and all sorts of designations have been created just to find jobs for their boys. And we are saying that there is a need for Ghana to return back on the path of progress. President Mahama believes that he can run this country with not more than 60 ministers. And he has done it before. When he had the opportunity as president in 2013, many of the ministries that the NPP created and as independent ministries, we merged them. Recall that under President Mahama, we had 1 minister for transport. There was no ministry for aviation. There was no separate ministry for railways. But under this government, they came and decided that we need to share. I mean, let's share the national cake. Let's share the positions. Let's satisfy all the boys, all the people who gave us money for campaign. And so there was a minister for aviation, minister for rails, and all of these ministries under President Mahama. Even when we were approaching 2016, he realized that no, we had gotten to a point as a country where he needed to reduce the number of ministers. And that is when he merged ministries of communication and ministry of information. So recall that there was a last-minute reshuffle where the Honorable Felix Ofosu-Kwakye became deputy to Dr. Omani Boama, who was Minister for Communication. And so We collapsed the information ministry and merged it together with the Ministry of Communication. Clearly, this is a leader who has demonstrated that he is committed to that promise of running a lean government. And we have said that in all our deliberations, in all our manifesto and policy discussions, President Mahama has given the people of Ghana an idea of who or how he is going to constitute his government.
But you had more than 60 during the former president's regime. That was about 90-something.
No, we never got. There was no point in time where our ministers exceeded 75. There was no point in time.
So you had 75 ministers.
No, I said there was no point in time where our ministries exceeded. What happened? You know, sometimes you have people appointed at the ministers of state at the presidency and all of that. And it's when you take ministers of state at presidency and you are using that to also make your analysis, because they do not necessarily have separate ministries where they have all these chief directors and all of that. Sometimes it's difficult to use that to really analyze. But at the end of the day, we never had ministers more than that number. We never got into that number. But again, Bella, it's about the commitment. For me, there is something that is striking in Alan's campaign messages. It is the fact that both Dr. Bawumia and Alan, who were members of the economic management team, who were ministers or who served under this government, all seem to be running away from everything that this government has done. It is striking because you served as cabinet minister. At the time you were cabinet minister, there was justification by the Akufo-Addo government for having that Obolo-sized government. And Dr. Bawumia is also the vice president, sitting vice president. And today he is still the vice president and head of the economic management team. And when you pay attention to the things that they say, you don't need anyone to come and explain to you that everybody is running away from the legacy of President Akufo-Addo. And for me, that is striking. Because there is nothing attractive about the performance of this government for which reason anybody would want to be associated with it. I mean, if you listen to Alan carefully, and he's even giving you his track records and achievements as Minister for Trade and Industries, you will realize one thing in his speeches. And that is the fact that the current order, the kind of governance that we have today, is one that he believes, just as we in the NDC and the majority of the Ghanaian people believe, that this government has been a mess. And that is why he's preaching that he wants transformation. He's preaching that there is a need for change. And so for me, it is not so much even about who the messenger is. It is more about the fact that consistently, even Akufo-Addo's vice president is running away from his legacy.
So would you like
on what record
to respond to that? Okay.
On what record is Dr. Bawumia and the NPP campaigning about? We believe that come December 7th, the good people of Ghana who have weighed these two governments or these two parties, the NDC and the NPP, the good people of Ghana will look at their living conditions. The good people of Ghana will look at the exchange rate, which Dr. Bawumia told us was a fundamental metric in measuring the success of the economy. The good people of Ghana will look at the fact that as we speak today, over 800,000 Ghanaians have dropped below the poverty line. And we are told that about 6.3 million Ghanaians are in poverty.
Okay.
7.8.
So
7.8 million Ghanaians are in extreme poverty. The good people of Ghana will look at the fact that when you look at the quality of education as we have it today, our educational system has been destroyed beyond measure. The good people of Ghana are looking for a rescuer. And that rescuer, I believe, is in His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, who will come and transform.
Adam, you're saying that there was
country.
at no point that you had more than 75 ministers. I'm looking at a comparison that was made. This is a publication that was put together in 2017, and it said that President Akufo-Addo is the first head of state in the Fourth Republic to have had more than 100 ministers. He's beaten his predecessor, John Mahama, by 26 appointees. John Mahama had 84 ministers.
Take out
deputies included.
No, that's when I mentioned, I stated that without the ministers of state at the presidency, that's what I said.
Akufo-Addo's 125 also had ministers of state.
Exactly.
How many ministers
so
of
if
state
we're talking about totality,
ministries?
you had 84 ministers.
By 2016, how many did we have?
Well, what I have here is 84 ministers. This is a comparison that was done.
So when I was mentioning the 75, I was emphatic that without the ministers of state at the presidency.
Okay, you let council come in.
When you take that out, it wasn't up to.
Let council come in so he can respond. Yes. So because he's saying that you were, of course, Honorable Alan Kyerematen was a cabinet minister. Yes, how is he running away from all the things that has happened under this government?
So Alan hasn't run away from his policies as Minister for Trade. Because like I said, the power that any minister has is the power of policy. So the question is, when Alan was Minister for Trade, what kind of policies did he champion? Alan, in this great transformational plan, speaks about the strategic anchor industries. As in the 10-point industrialization agenda, which is a key component of the policies that he gave to this government. You understand? Alan is still talking about the 1D1F, and he's saying that if he's present now, when you are present, you have the power of fiscal policy, because a minister doesn't have that power.
Okay.
Per se, all you have is the power of policy, but you do not have power as to how much money you spend on a program. That's the sole prerogative of the president. And because you are running a presidential system, every president has his own vision, has his own priority. Clearly, Nanado's priority was the free SHS. Clearly, Nado prioritized NAPCO, as in terms of how much he spent today. He spent 2.2 billion Ghana cedis in NAPCO and gave 400 million to 1D1F. So clearly, you could tell what his priorities were. Now, Alan is still standing by the 1D1F because we believe strongly that we can't get the growth, the sustained growth we have, if we do not pursue a radical industrialization agenda. So the 1D1F would even be enhanced more because it will be prioritized. You understand? Also, Alan has always believed in the development of the SME. Because you see, if you are supposed to compartmentalize the problems we have dealt with, one, you can say we have a job creation issue, we have a lack of revenue mobilization issue, and we have an inability to rake in sustainable levels of foreign exchange. Really, these are problems, and you can see these problems consistently in the kind of prescriptions the IMF always grants us when we go there. Now, it also tried that to deal with the job creation issue, for which reason we have a very huge public and civil service, for which reason why when you go to a place like Tor, or in fact, my brother was talking about slots, when the MPs are going around and MPP, they talk about slots, because the private sector is unable to create the jobs that we need. Now, Alan has always stood firmly by his belief that to solve that problem, we need to empower the small and medium-scale enterprises. So you see, as a major component of his program, especially when you go to the economic cluster, especially the macroeconomic one, Alan is saying that under his watch, he will introduce a policy where the banks will be mandated by way of, at the pain of they being sanctioned, to commit 10%, at least 10% of their profit after tax, in giving loans, granting loans to the small and medium-scale enterprises. Because it is right that the part of the economy that creates the jobs are the SMEs. If you go to Australia, more than 60% of all the jobs in Australia are created by the SMEs. You go to the USA and similar. So nobody needs to tell you that if we really need to solve the lack of jobs in our system, then government needs to give institutional support to the SME. And when I say institutional support, in terms of helping them in terms of their corporate governance, structuring, formalizing, and also making available to them resources. So in this program, Alan is saying that he's going to use his power of fiscal policy to cause Bank of Ghana to institute what we call a government loan guarantee scheme. Now, what that loan guarantee scheme will do is that it will unleash monies, capital, to these SMEs, because that's how you solve the job creation was the issue. He's believed in that, because through Empretech is one of his core beliefs, and believe that he's demonstrated throughout his work.
And he gave that idea to the president when he was minister?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what happened to it?
So that was the president has the power of fiscal. So what was the president? And you can only see a commitment of the president in how he expends money. Because if you go to the Ministry of Trade's website today, you see a 10-point industrialization agenda. One of the focuses of that 10-point industrialization agenda is the government-giving institutional support to
And that
the
industrialization agenda was set up by who?
Kyerematen. That was when it's a 10-point industrialization agenda that includes the 1D1F.
Okay.
So the 1D1F is just one strand. The strategic anchor industry is just one strand. So this car automobile industry is come under the strategic anchor industry. They did this 5 common user facilities. Even now, under Nanado's watch, they've done the 5 common user facilities. There's one at Kumbungu, there's one at Insuta, and all. Now, these were all components of the 10-point industrialization agenda. The question Ghanaians need to be asking ourselves is what was Nanado's commitment to this? Because they are policy. It's a policy now. You understand? That's why I'm saying that we need to understand the governance structure we are operating. Otherwise, we'll always be confused. We don't vote for the parties. We vote for human beings. And every person, every human being has his own vision of how he thinks he will run the country. And Alan, because he consistently stood against Nanado when he wanted MPP's flag bearer, was simply saying that, listen, I hold a vision, a view which is different from Nanado. Now, when Nanado became president and he invited Alan, for Alan, it was an opportunity to serve the country. Because when you're a minister, you're actually serving your country. You understand? So all these policies are there. And thank God they are on the Ministry of Trade. And so, for me, Alan has never and will never run away from the things he himself initiated as minister. And they're all captured
in this book.
In this book. And then the good thing is that because they represent about the only way where we can get the growth. Because like I said, we have stability. So after this IMF program, our economy will have the stability in it, the macro. Now, if you are unable to build on that stability and grow consistently to a level where your economy becomes resilient, then you go back to the instability. And you can only grow if government uses its power of fiscal policy, how it spends money, to push programs that bring about the growth. And here we are talking about industrialization, we are talking about transforming agric, and we are talking about tourism. And as I'm saying that, when you look into Alan's GTP, he puts the problems of Ghana or his strategy or his plans into clusters. Right. And so under the economics cluster, you see that we have the macroeconomy, but we also have the industrial revolution, we have the agric revolution, and then we have tourism. Because those are the sectors that can gender the growth that we need.
Let Adam come in so we can move on to our next topic. Do you want to respond to what he has said?
I mean, not to respond in particular, but to say that I'm happy he's speaking to a manifesto or a plan by his candidate. We also do have a plan. In 2020, we brought out arguably the best manifesto ever written in our Fourth Republic, the People's Manifesto. I can only promise the good people of Ghana that I've had the privilege of sitting in some of the discussions towards the release of our next manifesto. The NDC is preparing to release a very, very good manifesto that is not just words to win votes, but a great plan and gives the strategies that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama and the NDC will use in order to bring us out of the difficulties that we find ourselves as a country. But Bella, still about the size of government. I think that when we're discussing the size of government, we often limit it to issues of ministers. It's not just about the ministers. We must see that commitment replicated across all government agencies. Because where we sit today, there seems to be no efficiency in most of these institutions, especially at the top. So instead of investing so much into expanding the operations, opening up new branches to employ young Ghanaians and all of that, look at what happens at many of these agencies, the likes of Cocoa Board, the amount of money that is spent on not just board members, but the top management, how much they receive and all that. Interact with the cocoa farmer and what they get for their toil and what they get for their sweat is nothing compared to how the people who sit at the top what they allocate for themselves, to the extent that not too long ago we even saw that even iPads and the case for iPads, it is COCOBOD that is buying it for this, in quotes, big men and women who are in the who are part of the board. That even the case for them to use their iPad, COCOBOD allocated huge sums of money for them. And so the size of government is not just about ministers. At the presidency, today, go to the Flagstaff House, which is just a few meters away from us. How many people have been employed as staffers? Yeah. How many of them are idle? Many of them, from morning to evening, sit on social media. And I don't know if under this government they have created a new department for fake news, designing fake flyers here and there, churning out fake news. And that is what some of the presidential staffers are doing. And many of these people are Article 71 office holders, being paid fat salaries and allowances. They are entitled to ex-gratia and all of that. So let's go deeper into all of these issues and not limit it only to ministers. But just to conclude, Bella, I am confident that looking at what I have seen, and in our manifesto, we will put out how President Mahama intends to align and realign the ministries. I am confident that from 2025, January 7th, President Mahama, with his less than 60 ministers across board, will put this country back on the path of progress. We need to create jobs. We need to support market women with loans so that they can trade. We need to embark on massive infrastructure projects. Our education is in a mess. And so there's some weight of responsibility that awaits us come January 7th, because the politics of deception and pettiness ought to come to an end on December 7th.
All right.
And I believe the good people of Ghana will give us the opportunity to come and right the wrongs and put this country back on the path of progress.
We can only find out.
From 2025, Alan will be a very good opposition leader who can be offering some advice.
All right, let's move on to our next story now. Yes. And the president has ordered the finance ministry to release some 1.5 billion Ghana cedis bailout to the banking sector cleanup victims. The finance minister, Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam, announced this directive over the weekend during a UK town hall meeting. In fact, he's been speaking on a number of things, including the fact that we have brought an official end to our debt restructuring. But let's focus on this now. He says that the president directive mandates the disbursement to be completed between now and October, and underscored that the government prioritized the welfare of the Ghanaian people, clarifying that individuals are accountable for their investment decisions and not the government. Let's listen to him as he speaks on this. We'll also have a third guest join us. He's a governance advisor, so he can speak to this as well. Take a look.
Government is so caring that in the first place, we granted some bailout to all the affected. And I want to tell you again that the president has directed that we do another bailout. So between now and October, we will release 1.5 billion Ghana cedis to the affected people. This will not pay the entire amount, because the entire amount is 4 billion, but we are showing the roadmap. We will do 1.5 billion. Inshallah, Dr. Baumia will come as the president, and we will do all the rest.
Well, so that's the finance minister, and clearly he says that they're working, they're showing working, and that's why they're releasing that 1.5 billion to pay these people. There are a number of them, the victims who have spoken, they're saying that that 1.5 billion is not enough money. We'll see if we can raise any of them on the phone line so they can tell us exactly what they mean by that. But do we have Mr. Bafo Ajimandre on the line? I guess not. Well, we'll raise him shortly so he can also tell us what he makes of this. But Council, what do you think of this?
No, it's sad. For me, it doesn't solve the issue of the lack of credibility. That the lack of serious credibility that our economy has been plunged into by these haircuts. And because, Bella, as in they can pay the 1.5, they can even pay all the 4.5, but they have not laid out a strategy to rebuild that lack of credibility that they've plunged our economy into. Because the truth of the matter is that if there's one problem that the next president will be faced with, Honorable Kyerematen, I think he's addressed how he's going to deal with, is the fact that government will practically not have money, and so then your policies must be looking at how you are going to tap into private equity capital to be doing the number of projects you want to do, and also how you are going to attract foreign direct investments into your system. Because the truth of the matter is that this haircut issue and how this government has handled the economy has created, indeed, in fact, let me add that, I think it's one. In my view...
hold on. Let me just speak to Professor Bafo Agyemangua. He's a governance advisor, and I want to pick his thoughts on our first topic before we get into this. Good morning, sir, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, good morning.
All right, Professor. So earlier we're talking about the cap on the number of ministers, and clearly from yesterday's launch of the Great Transformational Plan by Honorable Alan Kyerematen, he said that he was going to ensure he had only 40 ministers in his government, thereby consolidating some of the ministries. What do you make of it?
Well, I think this is an issue that has been discussed for some time by almost all the leading politicians and commentators. The fact is that the Constitution really prescribes just about 20 or so substantive members of cabinet. Then presidents have the leeway of creating as many other ministries as they can, where at one point we had about 120 ministers. And that alarmed almost every Ghanaian. So now we are seriously considering how many ministers would be useful. The point is that I think the important thing here is this issue of the president going to bed and getting up in the morning and having a dream of creating a ministry either for a friend or wherever. That in itself must stop. That you cannot just easily get out and create a ministry, because that is additional expenditure that you impose on the people. So that is one issue that we have to deal with.
Okay.
In terms of the numbers, I have had the opportunity to look quickly at what Mr. Kyerematen's proposal is. I mean, it makes sense to me. You see, he creates something he calls Ministry of Infrastructure.
Yeah.
And he brings together all these government ministries and agencies that are involved in infrastructure development, like roads, transportation,
communication.
All these things have been put together. So it is very possible that if we think carefully, there are so many ministries that we have created that do not make sense, that simply add to the national expenditure. So I think it's important we rationalize how these ministries are created. And as I said, place a cap on it. And before a president can create a ministry, there must be a process going to Parliament, arguing your case and making sure a Parliament accepting that yes, there's a good reason to create a ministry. So two things I'm saying here is, one, yes, it's important we place a cap somewhere to stop presidents who simply create ministries randomly. And second, for a president to create a ministry, I think there must be a stringent process so that we don't just get all these at times needless ministries being created.
All right, but how would you answer questions posed to Honorable Kyerematen, for example, about the fact that he was a member of this government when the president appointed over 100 ministers to serve in, his government, and yet they're wondering if he raised any objections to the number of ministers. How does he suddenly turn around now and say that might have been too much and he would work with only 40 ministers? Is he not being two-faced in that case, which is what people are asking?
Oh, I don't think this is an issue at all. Look, our president. I'm not talking about the Kufuor as president, but the presidents who have created. It's almost what I call imperial president. A president can create things. If you're a minister, you do not have control over how many ministries are created. You may protest privately if you want with your president, but you are just being called. You've been invited and given an appointment. So you are not the one going to control how many ministries the president will appoint. So I don't think this is a useful argument here. The fact is that the presidential powers in this country are such that a president has so many discretionary powers, can create and uncreate as he or she wishes. And that is why I made the earlier point about making sure we don't make it that simple, that easy for a president to simply create ministries. There must be some stringent processes, in fact, including parliament approving and all. So I don't think because Alan was a member of cabinet or the government, he was part of the 120 ministries. Therefore, why is he now saying that? So, I don't see any merit in that kind of argument at all.
Okay, but there are concerns as well that Honorable Kyerematen has been a bit dormant sometimes in terms of campaigning in order to become that third force that many people are looking for. And so from where you sit, do you think that he's going to be able to disrupt, the elections for the NDC and the NPP like many people are hoping with the way he's campaigning lately?
Well, I frankly, I have not been following individual candidates as such. Normally, I look at national issues and make some comments, but with specific reference to him being dormant and not all that, I think the fact that he has come out with this document, I just happened to have seen it yesterday. It's a very interesting document, very detailed and very thoughtful. Maybe he was taking the time to put his thoughts together in this document in order to come out for Ghanaians to see what he has or what he has to offer. That in itself is commendable because so far we are yet to see any candidate, even from the so-called major political parties, that lays out in clear details and with such clarity what he thinks governance should be in the country. So now that he has come out, I'm sure he's provoking this debate we are all engaging in today. And I'm sure he's going to be better. Whether he goes out to campaign, that's not my business. I'm not in his party. I'm not. Right. But just looking at what he has presented, I think it's a very interesting document that he has put out.
All right. Well, quickly before I let you go, Say, I just want to pick your thoughts on this as well. I mean, just this weekend, the finance minister also announced that the president had given an order for some 1.5 billion Ghana cedis to be released to the victims of the banking sector cleanup. A little too late, if you ask?
Well, when I read that news yesterday, it wasn't a matter of being too late or anything of the sort. It's just a simple matter of how we have really made our presidents almost like kings. Why should a president be the one to direct that a certain amount should be paid? We have Minister of Finance, we have the banking, we have the governor of the bank, we have all these financial institutions that should be responsible for taking care of this. So in other words, if the president has not authorized the payment, then no institution could have thought of making the payment right or wrong. You see, for me, the issues we have in this country, and I think even in our discussions of the Alan document, I've made the point about 2 or 3 times that we have empowered the president so much. In a country, when there's something wrong with the banking system and government has made a decision, that decision is implemented by institutions, certain officials in the chain of or command, so to speak. So if the clearance are created some logjams, I'm sure the Bank of Ghana, the Ministry of Finance, and other certain agencies in government are aware of that. And they should be the one to instigate. Of course, I don't know whether finally it is a president who has to sign that such an amount should be released. I do not know how the government works in that respect.
All right.
But of course, if it's now that he wants to get the money released, for those who are going to be recipients, I'm sure they will be happy, whether it's coming late or not. They will be happy. But I'm still concerned about how our presidents will set overwhelming authority and power over us. That's my concern.
Well, thank you so much for speaking to us this morning. Professor Bafo Agyeman-Duah is a governance expert and advisor as well. Counsel, sorry to have cut you, but I'll bring you in. Do you agree with him, even beyond the point you were making as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you see, like he really said, the extent of the arbitrariness of how these things are handled flies against the principles that underpin our constitution, which essentially is to limit the powers of the president. But having said that, I think this announcement in no way also alleviates or gives any hope or grants any sort of credibility to an economy that essentially has lost credibility. Because that's the biggest problem. In my view, over the past few weeks, the extent of depreciation of the city, in my view, was as a result of simply the lack of trust or credibility the people of Ghana have in the economy. And this populace, and forgive me for saying a populace, because certainly some people are going to be happy. But what is fueling this is simply the 2024 what's called election, and not because
that's the only reason the president would ask.
I'm very sure. That's my view. I'm very sure what is motivating what the payments is very self-serving. Why Masisa is the president is directing us. And you see the way he emphasizes on the president is directing us. You understand? At the end of the day, you are supposed to grant leadership, and if you understand that the call is to serve, then you realize that it's not about you, but in how things have been handled. There's about the person of Nana Akufo-Addo, and nothing in how the party, as in how the MPP is constituted, and how the party has been weakened, gives me any comfort as to the ability of the party to grant to the people of Ghana potential leaders that can help us in restoring Ghana as the black star of Africa. So for me, I think the key issues still remain, and those key issues being the massive lack of credibility our economy is facing, and the MPP and their candidates' lack of an appreciation or lack of a credible solution to bring back that loss credibility. It is for that reason. I'm sure this will be the last time I speak.
Yes,
it is for that
I'm
reason,
actually wrapping up, so I can go to them.
So I'm wrapping up. It is for that reason why I'll call on Ghanaians to throw our weight behind Honorable Alan John Kyerematen to give us and restore the credibility that leadership has lost in this country, to put him in a position where he can implement this comprehensive and great plan, which clearly would unite the country and bring about the stability, the growth, the resilience that will create the prosperity that all of us need. Thank you.
Adam, what do you make of this announcement, especially looking at how much we even invested in shutting down these banks, etc., when they probably needed just about 4 billion Ghana cedis, to fix their problems? And yes, we spent about 25 billion or more. Now we're releasing monies years after, when these people have been calling for their monies to be released. Do you also agree with Professor that, first of all, it shouldn't even be the president asking or making that order? And is this coming a little too late?
Bella, a couple of weeks ago, I intercepted a research paper or document. And in that research or survey that was conducted by a group of political scientists and other social scientists, in that document, they predicted a one-touch victory for His Excellency John Dramani Mahama.
Which document is this?
And when you look at the reasons given for Dr. Bawumia's 38%, he was hovering around 38%. One of the issues that they listed was the fact that the haircut that was given to Ghanaian investors and the banking sector cleanup, people not being paid, and NAPCO beneficiaries, all of those things were some of the reasons that came up. And so I'm not surprised. And I'm saying this because I want you to put it on record that after this 1.5 million, they will attempt other things to appease those who have been aggrieved by the terrible economic decisions of the Akufo-Addo Bawumia government. And so, like my brother said, it is nothing but a campaign or an election gimmick to appeal to those who are aggrieved by that terrible decision to close down the banks, when indeed a little capital injection from the government at the time could have saved these banks. But sometimes I believe that Dr. Bawumia and the NPP, I wonder how or what kind of view, how they see Ghanaians. Because banking sector cleanup did not only affect people who invested or who had monies in these banks. What about the workers? Thousands of workers who lost their jobs. Some of them are still sitting home hopeless, no job, and all of a sudden they were moved from maybe middle class to people now below the poverty lines because of that wicked, insensitive decision by the Akufo-Addo government. And so 4 months, 5 months to election, do you think that by giving out a certain 1.5 million and you are now going to pay them, those who had their funds locked up, you have done something and those people will take their money and vote for you? Do you know the value of their investment in 2018, 2019 as against the value of that investment now? We can do a simple calculation. In 2018, at the time they were closing down these banks, the CD to dollar was 4.8. And so if you had 10,000 Ghana cedis in the bank in 2018, you probably have, we can do the calculation. So let's say 2018, let's even say you had 48,000 Ghana cedis. That was $1,000 at the time because you had 48,000 Ghana cedis in your bank account. You were affected by this terrible decision by Dr. Bawumia and the economic management team. Today, if that 48,000 Ghana cedis is being
4,800.
No, okay, 4,000.
$1,000.
So that was $10,000. So 48,000 Ghana cedis, $10,000. Today, if you are giving the same 48,000 Ghana cedis, you help me calculate. How much do you have that in dollar term?
About 2.5.
Just about 2,500, or it could even be less.
Yeah.
And so look at the value. You see, money is not the time value of money. And these are people who claim that they are great economists and they understand the nuances of economics. We're talking about the bread and butter issues. The value of my 48,000 that was locked up in the bank in 2018 today, or at the time, today that value is so low that the things I could purchase with that money, I can't do the same again. Those who had their funds locked up. Look, today, when you go to the port, even I recall a friend of mine, when he lost his job at the bank, decided to buy one of these small cars for Uber. At the time, he bought that car for 32,000 Ghana cedis, and that is what he's been using all this while. But today, do you know that those small cars, whether the Vitz and all of that, if you're not holding over 80,000, 90,000, you cannot get them to buy? And so imagine somebody now goes for his money and decides to invest it in such a business. Can you get a car to buy again? Because today, even today, those who are importing Vitz and all of those small cars for Uber, Yango, and all of that, the duty on it alone is more than the 30,000. And so at the end of the day, you have been giving your money, but the money is useless. Are they going to pay it with the interest? Again, one thing that we have lost sight of is the fact that the banking sector cleanup handed our financial sector to foreigners. How many indigenous banks survived the banking sector cleanup? That our government was so wicked that you recognize there was a challenge. Instead of investing money, injecting capital to save these businesses, to increase employment or save people's jobs and all of that, you decided to collapse them. And today, as we speak, the only banks thriving are the foreign banks. Why are you handing your financial sector to foreigners? And you've collapsed. Look at them. When I look at the likes of Captain Kofi Amoabin, we look at the likes of Ideal Finance, Dr. Nico Tejani. When I look at Mr. Indum, Dr. Pakwesi Indum and all of that, look, drive around town. Dr. Kwabena Dufo, drive around town. Their offices have been abandoned, and these are places that could be used to do something meaningful if government had just injected some small capital to help them. And in any case, I want the people of Ghana to know that one of the reasons why some of those banks faced capital or liquidation issues was the fact that government was owing them. Government owed a lot of contractors who had taken loans from these banks. So how wicked could we be as a people that You, Dr. Bawumia, you sat there as the head of the economic management team. You took this terrible, this wicked, this insensitive decision. And today, because the research is staring at your face, and your consultants are telling you that you are going to account for those terrible decisions, you have decided to raise 1.5 million or billion to pay. The same economy that a few months ago, people needed to take haircuts. Okay, all of us who took haircuts, if you now have money to pay those whose funds have been locked up, come back and pay us the haircut or the hair you took out of our funds, bring it back into our heads. These people are so confused. Henceforth, all their actions, inactions is only geared towards elections. But I can assure them, the people of Ghana will receive these monies. I can assure them, people will queue up to go and take what is left. But come December 7th, we will not be deceived by this petty politicking and politics of tokenism.
All right.
We will make the right choice. We'll vote them out and bring back John Dramani Mahama as president of this republic. Shameful people managing the economy.
I keep saying that we can only find out after the elections in December, and so it's really up to you to decide who you're going to vote for. But gentlemen, thank you so much. Nana Kojo Jamfi says that, so Adam can call the ex-president His Excellency, but finds it difficult to call the sitting president and the vice president His Excellency. Adam, this is for you.
I do call them, but if that didn't come out, there's nothing deliberate.
Okay.
I call them His Excellency. I call Dr. Bawumia, and all that.
Okay, well, very good question. Money is saying that. So where are they finally getting this money to pay the victims of the banking sector cleanup? I was joking when I said we can develop Ghana without borrowing. That's Mensa Wisdom quoting the vice president, I believe. Well, I think we're going to wrap up at this point, but it's been a pleasure hanging out with you, and I wish you the very best. Yeah, good morning to all our friends on the other side who are watching via Facebook and commenting as well. I've seen all those messages as well.